Welcome to NHL Quick Hits. I'm David Crosby here with Steele Roden. On today's show, we're going to start with a record I didn't think I would ever see broken. In San Jose's 3-2 loss to Vegas on Monday night, Patrick Marleau passed Gordie Howe to set the new all-time record for NHL games played with 1,768. Howe has held that record since 1980, but the 41-year-old Marleau still has time to add to his lead this season. And who knows after this one? Steele, just how amazing is this accomplishment?
I think it's absolutely incredible. This is a thing that I don't think anyone really thought that we would ever see be a record broken like this. Patrick Marleau came into the league in 1997. He's played for 23 years, and that's just an incredible feat in itself. And like you said, he still has a couple more games to keep adding to the final score of this NHL record, 11 more games for him on the season. And, we still don't know what might happen for next season. He might come back to the NHL. He might retire. It's still up in the air with Patrick Marleau and his family and what he wants to do. But just to be able to get to this point in his career is absolutely incredible. And just pat on the back. Congratulations to Patrick Marleau for doing it.
The second overall pick in 1997, Marleau has 522 goals and 1,110 points. But his accomplishments have often been overshadowed, playing alongside Joe Thornton in San Jose and against other big-name superstars in other markets. I feel like Marleau might be one of, if not the most underrated player of his generation.
Yeah, it's tough to say, maybe from a fan's perspective, for fans that are recently coming into the game of hockey and watching it, he might be a little on the underrated side. But for me, I don't view him as an underrated player. I think, obviously with the talent that he's played against and played with, you can talk about it from that point of view. But for fans that grew up watching Patrick Marleau and for players that played with him or played against him throughout his entire NHL career, they know who and what Patrick Marleau is about. No matter if he doesn't have the amount of skill that some players like Sidney Crosby or Alexander Ovechkin might have, but they know every single game when he comes to play, he's there 110%. He's top 50 for NHL points all time. He's still in that top 50. And for 7,000 players that have played in the entire NHL career whenever it started, when it did start. So for players who have played with him, for fans who grew up watching Patrick Marleau, even though he's not a flashy player like he was once before, they know how much of a special player he is and what he brings to the table. So for me, I don't view him as an underrated, but it just depends on how you view him, and that's what it is for me.
Well, he had that short stint with the Maple Leafs and a handful of games with the Penguins, but he's obviously always going to be remembered as an all-time great in San Jose and probably a surefire Hall of Famer. Now, it's almost certain it won't happen again this year. So if Marleau retires without that elusive championship ring, what do you think his legacy will be?
Yeah, if he did win the Stanley Cup, that'd just be the icing, the cherry on the top of the cake there. And there's so much more to Patrick Marleau than just the Stanley Cup. He's been a part of 3 All-Star games. He's been called to serve for Team Canada, winning 2 Olympic gold medals, 1 silver medal, as well as 2 World Cup championship gold medals. So there's just a lot more to Patrick Marleau's game than that elusive Stanley Cup that you mentioned, as well as, holding the record for most NHL games played, like we just mentioned, being top 50 for points as well in the NHL. But finally, I think it's the leadership quality that he brings to the dressing room and to the team that he plays for, especially for the San Jose Sharks when he was captain for 5 or 6 years as well. So I think everybody just loves Marleau when he's in the dressing room. Everybody loves playing against him because he's just got that big smile on his face. And I think that overall, he's just a family-oriented guy. And that's exactly what we saw with his time in Toronto. Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner brought a loving to him just because of how well of a father figure and a family guy he was. So there's a lot more than that elusive Stanley Cup ring that is seen in Patrick Marleau.
Yeah, I think he's the quintessential quiet professional. He didn't complain when things went bad, and he didn't really care about the spotlight when things went well, which was most seasons in his NHL career. And yeah, you mentioned it. He really became a great leader and put together a run of consistent production that few other players in the NHL have reached. Now, let's move over to a pair of other great players who faced Marleau in Roberto Luongo and Shane Doan. Hockey Canada named Luongo general manager for the upcoming Men's World Hockey Championship, and Doan will join him in an assistant role. Luongo will have the final say on all hockey operations, including the evaluation and selection of players and staff. So how do you like the fit of these two with Hockey Canada? And could you see Luongo becoming an NHL GM one day?
I really like the fit for Luongo and Shane Doan in this GM and assistant GM role for Team Canada, and we've both seen it. Those are two guys that have been put in those roles before, but as players, Luongo has won 2 gold medals in the Olympics for Team Canada in 2010 and 2014. Shane Doan has won a couple of World Cup championships as well for Team Canada. So I think they have a really good idea of what they want to do and who they want to select. And for me, it's a no-brainer on who you want to select. The amount of talent that Canada as a nation brings in hockey is just unbelievable and unsurmountable to other countries around the world. I think they just have a lot of people that they can pick from, and it shouldn't be really hard choices at all. We're talking about guys like McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, Nathan McKinnon, guys like that. It's fairly easy on who you want to pick. So I think he's got an easy job as it is, but as well as, fitting those lines together, I think it's a really good idea. He's got a really good job, an easy job ahead of him. But for the second part of that question, if he is going to be a general manager in the NHL someday, that it's possible. I think it is possible. And I think the teams that that we could both agree on are the Florida Panthers or Vancouver Canucks that he would like to be a part of as a general manager. And to me, I think it'd just be hilarious to see him in a general manager role just because of his tweets, his tweeting ability to just make people laugh. And if he were to draft someone or send a little funny tweet out there beforehand, I think it'd be really funny to see him in the general manager role.
Yeah, I completely agree. One thing that I kind of thought about is maybe him and Doan can kind of convince players to want to play for them, because there's been so much hockey compacted into such a short amount of time that a lot of these guys in the offseason are probably just going to want to recover. They're not going to want to go and play competitive hockey and play in the World Championships. But hopefully these two guys can get the best players available to them. And I really think they put Team Canada in a good position. Now, you mentioned him being great with the media. He's a really intelligent guy. He clearly loves hockey. And I also think goalies have an interesting vantage point to the game that, maybe he could bring some unique perspective to the front office. I love when former players come into these type of roles and we can see kind of what's behind that mask and what they think of the game and the players that they want to put on their team, because we've seen guys like Joe Sakic and Steve Yzerman, who are probably two of the best team builders in the entire NHL right now. So I can't wait to see what Luongo and Doan do with this opportunity. But that's all for today's episode. On behalf of Steel Roden, I'm David Crosby, and thanks for tuning in to NHL Quick Hits.